I will introduce part of a bigger picture of research that focus in this article on the internal validation of model for transversal competence assessment in K-12 that we certainly prove using digital competence as a case for the test of this model. I did this research together with some colleagues from the Faculty of Psychology and Education at the Open University in Catalonia, and I will talk to you about the context of the development of this research. I won't reveal all the detail of the article, so I hope that the viewers of this video will be tempted to read the article. So I decided to provide more contextual information and some further development we did together with this research. This research that I present in the article is framed within the CRIS project and Horizon 2020 project, very ambitious one, that I wanted to develop a method for development, assessment, and certification of the digital competence in K-12 context. We are talking about primary, secondary school, if you want, at the same time. So the main outputs of this project were a digital competence operational concept, just we could be actionable and being able to guide the teachers in primary and secondary school to develop situations where they could assess the digital competence development. And the one that I will focus now, that is the digital competence assessment model in particular, that has two other very related concepts and as equally important, and the digital competence certification system that was also enabled by a technology that was a platform, an e-portfolio-like platform supporting that. Just to mention here that this methodology is part of the Innovation Radar, was awarded and recognized by European Commission and is listed there. Our paper is based on a design and development research approach by Ricker and Klein. It's part of the big umbrella of design-based research. We focus in this paper on the internal validation using a method that is probably not very known, but very useful. That's the usability documentation process that allows us to test the extent to which, in our case, the model could be a method, was effectively, efficiently, and satisfactorily used in the context for which it was intended, in our case, K-12. And then what we did is to explore the conceptual sounding of the model in the support of what we call competence assessment scenarios, that are complex activities that support the development of the digital competence with others at the same time. The usability of the design support instrument. Any design process needs some other instruments. You need to tool the designer with concept, but also with instrument and technology that will help them take decisions. And we also explore the distance between the teachers' practices, actual ones, present ones, with those that were fostered by the approach that we were incorporating, as well as identifying enablers and barriers at the institutional level. And we did it through, in this paper, with within three main lenses: the design, the implementation, and the teaching practice. What we did first of all, as any design-based research approach, is to review the literature. And then we review the literature with an intention of developing a theoretically founded model. And for doing so, I will just mention two or three main sources of inspiration for the development of this model. Then the integration pedagogy, that's Rogers' approach to competence-based learning in a school, that is fostered also by UNESCO. But we also explore different ways of assessing, developing and assessing transversal competencies or generic competencies, and with elicited principles that should be integrated into the model, like learner-centered, what we call macro strategies, or active pedagogies, where the student must get involved actively in the learning process, with meaningful assessment and with different ways of assessing and different tools that might be used in the assessment. And of course, like in any competence development, around thinking about the progressive complexity of the competence in order to identify levels. Result of that is there's this more conceptual model that integrates pedagogy of integration, these approaches, and develops into a scenario that decomposes into learning activities that sub-decompose into tasks. These activities can be collaborative or individual, and they are focused on the outcome, but also in tracing the process of learning, looking for evidence that is generated throughout the learning process. A system supports all the development and tracking of this. And on the left, you will see you develop some design instrumentalities that we call, that were supporting the teachers in the development of this competence assessment scenario that translate the model into actual situations. Between brackets, I want to mention that the first and very important output of the project was the development of the digital competence, more operational concept, not very abstract. We studied and mapped the DISCOM European framework that divided into 5 areas, and we analyzed and mapped it through also other 7 more official applied schemes and frameworks in Europe. And then we develop further on the areas and the sub-competencies, performance criteria, and the indicators that will support the assessment of the digital competence. Case scenarios, these competence assessment scenarios are following the integration pedagogy approach. The digital competencies is embedded into this curriculum. And for example, they were developed coordinating mathematics, English, geography, and history, for that is in this example, together with the digital competence. And it is managed by an e-portfolio solution that also integrates the assessment process that is progressive, as I mentioned. Coming back to the specifics of the article, we did the internal validation in 2 stages. The first one was involving 30 teachers in 9 groups from 6 different countries, working together in the co-design of this competence assessment scenario, using all these design instrumentalities and the conceptual model. We use focus group interviews and a documentation analysis to see how it was happening and as part of the internal validation. And then in a second step, where we work with 44 teachers, and this second stage was more oriented toward the CAS adaptations, seeing the potential of these competence assessment scenarios of certain complexity and the flexibility for adaptation for different contexts or even different disciplines. And we passed the surveys where we had 44 responses. Everyone was there in these workshops, and we did run group interviews according to the teams that were working together. The analysis, as I mentioned, was made on the design, implementation, and teaching practice lenses and coding system. And the CAS, for example, analysis, what we did at the very end, we used, for example, the design instrumentality checklist to see if the outputs of the application of the model and the design instrumentalities were compliant and were accurate as we wanted in terms of the approach of the competence-based education and digital competence. As you may see here, in these 20 competence assessment scenarios developed, we see the application of different active pedagogies, using project-based learning, collaborative, proposing different work dynamics, assessments, or not only focused on teacher, but also on self and peer assessment, using different kind of assessment instruments, and combining different disciplines. This is the analysis we did also to see if the model was sound enough. Of course, a digital competence, as we were seeing at the very beginning, is quite complex. Not only in one competence assessment scenario can be developed. So we develop what we call a set of CAS that can be implemented in a school and integrated into curriculum with different subjects. So this is a calculation of around 85 hours of work during a semester or 1 year, where the digital competence is being developed progressively. Of course, we need tools for that. So we develop an e-portfolio solution, a platform. Here I can show you some screenshots of how it can be seen. And as you see, we integrate activities into the platform that integrates a lot of kind of multimedia resources, descriptions. Also, there's a way also to evaluate all these competency assessment scenarios that are recorded in the system, and there's kind of analytics that help the student to see the progress and also the teacher. This is the panel that sees this student, not the teacher. There's another specific for teacher. And this is a progress bar that can help them understand where they are. And the idea is to use gamification also and digital badge in order to encourage and engage students in the whole process. And here is just an example of how it was applied within one school in Croatia, in particular, where they were working in a classroom. It's not everything. Not everything happens in the classroom. Just to give you an idea, this is one example, but there are others that combines more hybrid approaches. And if you want to have a better understanding of the whole issue, you have the internal validation that is one of the ways that we can follow and our research on a better basis. That is our article that we presented in this special issue. If you want external validation, there's another paper that came recently published regarding the perspective of the teachers. And also we have another based on the open educational practices of teaching working together. And two others that if you want about how we develop the digital competence and operational concept and the platform usability if you are interested. Most important to tell you that there's all the collection of documents that we created are accessible in the our open repository at the Open University of Catalonia, and the CRIS booklet collects best competence assessment scenarios that can be modified and applied in other contexts, and not necessarily with the technology we propose with other technologies. So thank you very much. I think I'm on time, and this is the big picture.
Actually, it's mainly just processual, or this assessment is really in the context of the K-12 students. So it's the last year in the secondary school process, right, Marcelo? That's where you are assessing?
We developed two scenarios, one at the end of the primary school and one at the end of the secondary schools. Okay, so the CAS can be adapted. Some of them can be adapted, some others no. But most of the cases I presented here is more for K-12, yes, at the end.
Oh, okay.
At the end, because the idea was certification. So the idea is that when we certify and why, so in this transition from school to another level.
Okay, one of the things but maybe I missed it out in your presentation was in the beginning of the process, because this model, the framework you are showing you, the model and the study is mainly for assessment. But in the beginning, did you test or ask the students if in the process of those students, they had contact, they learned, they had opportunity to learn the various digital competences?
Yes, it's not in this paper because this paper is about the development of the internal validation of the model. This is the approach that we use. And then we did external validation with the students. There was like 500 schools and more than 2,000 students intervening in that. And it was a voluntary basis. So many schools enrolled. They didn't complete the whole process of all competence assessment scenario, but as a proof of concept was a very strong one. And of course, if we don't have technology behind that, it's very difficult. But coming back to what Carlos said at the very beginning, when you work with this kind of transversal competencies, more comprehensive one, you actually need time, you need different contexts, different complexities, and if you don't have any kind of support, and also ways of working at the schools themselves, working collaboratively, doing team teaching, co-design, it won't work, but it demands a change in the paradigm. In primary school was facilitated because mostly teachers are like specialists in all the subjects. In secondary school, demands a little bit more in terms of coordination. We work with very innovative schools also, I must mention, in the project, and they already have implemented these project-based learning approaches integrating subjects. Yeah. So it was very well received. For other institutions or countries in particular, that this is not part of the culture and the way they do, these practices, the distance we were measuring is much more. So that's why we wanted to analyze the context, the institutional barriers, the need for support and training, what they are already doing, and that is something explored in this paper that we present here in this issue.
Thank you, Marcelo.
That part.